You the heir to this throne, Kanan. We share everything. It's you.
You want to share everything with me, too.
All you gotta do is ask.
Now, last week was what I thought was more of a build-up. We were introduced to a new player in Salbacelli and the Italian Mafia, and they were setting up this war between Raq and the Italians. So much of what we saw set the stage for the events that played out in episode 5, and it was one where I thought which focused heavily on building relationships with some, showing cracks with others, with a lot of revelations. Now, in contrast to Kanan and Raq's relationship, we saw this beautiful embrace between Kenya and Juke, Marvin opening up to Renee. But even though we've got people on the same side, some have different ways of working. For example, we saw Dominic and Jimmy, who were sent by Salbacelli, but both of them had different ideas behind attacking Raq and Kanan. There was Lou and Crown with music, and how they had a different approach to making a deal, as well as Lou finding out Crown was sleeping with Jess. And then there was Raq and Kanan in a game of poker. We also saw how Howard's relationship and him opening up to Andrea backfired. And just on this topic, before I get into this episode, I do think this was worth a mention. Who is Andrea's son that they've mentioned a few times, especially with Beck threatening to call child welfare in episode 5. Now, there are so far 4 people who have been mentioned who we haven't seen. Andrea's son is one of them. There was Hugo, who was the club owner Lou spoke of in season 1. Dee was his brother, who Raq called a wild boy. Cartier mentioned Crown's cousin, Hector. And yeah, I know a lot of you will be screaming at me saying don't forget Breeze, so there's also Breeze. Now, not all of them may show up, but they are characters we may want to keep in the back of our minds for a later episode or season. So, just finishing this particular plot with Andrea, Howard, and Beck. Andrea dropped the fact Howard has a son, and maybe Beck had a bit of a revelation. Maybe Beck was thinking, it all makes sense. Now I know why Howard was so obsessed with Kanan, as well as the Thomases, because she was always questioning, what is it with you and that kid? What is it with you and that family? So she's closing in, and Howard knows it. So is he gonna do what needs to be done? But with that being said, this episode actually started with the same crackhead as in season 1, Sam. Now, he was near the Detective Howard shooting, as well as being questioned by Howard after Kanan's product dropped a hell of a lot of bodies in the streets. But business was closed because Marvin had to deal with Frank the Inspector's body, which he put in the wall back in season 1. They referenced it in a very subtle way in episode 4 with the sting, which was because of the dead corpse. And this shit is Marvin being Marvin. He's always providing some sort of comic relief. Now, he brought the body to Raq, who was taking Kanan on a camping trip with the hope it helps them build a bond. Because I'm sure we've all noticed, since Kanan's been back, their relationship hasn't been as close as it was in season 1. Now, we even had this conversation with Juke just before they left, and Kanan even said, when he looked at Howard's eyes, it seemed way too familiar, but Juke shut this down straight away. Now, lurking in the corner of the street were 2 of Salbacelli's men, Dominic and Jimmy, and it was clear that they had 2 different mindsets. Jimmy was here to do a job, but Dominic was full of hate, and what followed with him and Kanan was foreshadowed in this very scene. So, sticking with their trip to the Catskills, in the trunk of their car was the dead corpse, which is something Raq asked Kanan to help her with when they were in the Catskills, with Kanan giving this look to his mother, and that's because he's becoming aware of who she is, how she lies, and all of the fucked up things she's done, as well as asked him to do. So just on some of Raq's power moves that she's made in the past, she questioned Kanan about Davina, and she said she liked her, but I don't think she did.
Now I know why Kanan been walking around the house all dumb looking and dreamy-eyed. You are beautiful.
So, I made a video last week on 5 power moves that Raq could potentially have made behind the scenes, and one which I didn't consider was Davina. Did Raq call child welfare to get rid of her because she knew Kanan was becoming soft around Davina, which is something she couldn't afford to have? Now, Kanan also mentioned him kicking it with someone who lives next door to Famous, so no doubt we may see Raq meeting either Palomar or Corinne, and maybe pulling a similar move because we all know how protective she is of Kanan. Now, it was also ironic, camping was hypo sort of thing, and then we have Raq looking into the fire pit, possibly remembering how she was the one who may have burned him alive for being a snitch. But in real time, something which was a problem for Raq was Hannah, but there was always going to be a problem you can see and those you can't. So in the Catskills, there was also Dominic and Jimmy, who almost had a clear shot on Raq if it wasn't for this father and son. Now on the side where Kanan was chilling with Hannah, you had Dominic harassing him, because earlier in the episode, he made reference to how he'd never let his daughter in a million miles of someone like Kanan. Now just before shit got real, Kanan and Raq had a talk, and where in season 1, Raq had a different plan for Kanan, she quickly realized he wanted to be in the game. So now we've got Raq telling Kanan he's the heir to her throne, but in my opinion, the only reason why she's saying it now is because she'll do anything to keep him away from Howard. And the only way she can keep an eye on both her business and Kanan is if she combines them, hence bringing Kanan on board. But this conversation really was a game of poker. Both of them knew each other had secrets, and both knew each other was lying. And I'm gonna come back around to this conversation in just a moment. Now just before they left, even though Raq warned Kanan about messing with Hannah, he couldn't help himself. And where Dominic saw it for the second time, he couldn't help himself either. So where we saw Kanan getting into a tussle with Dominic, on the other side we had Raq with a knife to Jimmy, but she had to leave to go and help Kanan. Now it wasn't Raq who got to Kanan in time, it was his partner, Dominic, who put a bullet in Jimmy's leg, because killing or hurting kids is not what they're about. And so in that moment, Raq said she'll make a deal with Salvacelli, but will she really? She's someone who goes back on her word. And I'm gonna give you another example. She told Kanan no more secrets at the fire pit, but it didn't take long for Raq to go back on her word. She said to Kanan all he needed to do was ask and she'll tell him. But on the way home, he did ask who were those guys, but all she said was it didn't matter, but they will get dealt with. So it didn't take her long to lie to Kanan again. But let's move on to Juke, Zisa and Lou. Now this was a tape that Crown gave Juke in episode 4, and he knows very well what he was doing. He was stirring up what he can with Lou to try and force him out of Bulletproof Records. Now this was a remix of Juke's song, which I will leave the link to down below. Now when Juke confronted Zisa, she was shocked at who actually gave up her lyrics. It was Lou along with Crown. Now this was obviously gonna cause a reaction, because this was a song that was dedicated to Nicole, and even if Lou asked, Juke said she would have said no. So even what Lou did was a bit fucked up. Something he did differently compared to Marvin was apologize, but then saying she'll get credit for the lyrics pushed Juke away. So there is a bit of tension building between Juke and Lou. But she did find some happiness singing at church. Kenya was looking on in the background as a proud mother, which was followed up by a warm embrace. Now in contrast, Marvin's got a real battle on his hands to win Juke back. We saw him open up to Renee for the first time on how he fucked up this relationship. So maybe Renee can help, or at least I hope she does, because I really would love to see Marvin and Juke patch things up. But something else which he may have messed up on is following Tony, because close behind him was a cop, and Tony was supposed to have skipped town, which is why she couldn't testify against Marvin. So this is one to keep an eye on. Now coming back to Lou, the problem he's got with Juke is one of many. Crown's been a problem from day one, and in this meeting he showed Lou up and basically embarrassed him, so Lou wasn't going to allow him to get away with it. We saw him punch Crown and knock him to the floor, but Crown pulling a piece. Now there are a few things that came from this. 1. Crown didn't have the guts to shoot Lou, and 2. Famous came into the music studio and told Lou that Crown was sleeping with Jessica, and I don't think Lou knew this side of the story, even though he made it sound as if he did. But it was dropped by Marvin in episode 5 when he said Crown Camacho was all up in that. So going back around to the beginning of this video of relationships and revelations, this was another, and Crown vs Lou really is coming to boiling point, and we may just see the end of it in episode 6, for Crown that is. And that was episode 5, one which focused heavily on broken relationships, mending relationships, and revelations, a game of poker, and how it all sets up for an action-packed second half of the season. So for me, the foundation has been set. Kanan knows who his mom is, there's Crown vs Lou, Salvacelli has made his move, and now we're gonna see Raq retaliate. We've got Detective Beck who's getting closer, Juke and Kenya's relationship blossoming, which Raq definitely won't be happy about. But drop all your thoughts down below on all things episode 5, and of course if you are new to the channel and you haven't done so already, then remember to smash the subscribe button if you want to see everything Power Book 3 and Power Universe related. But as always, thank you guys for watching. and I'll see you next time.